Alright, well, the little green Mini is back. The new owner doesn't like the ride. It's too low. Every time he hits a bump it rubs. So he bought himself some new coilovers that are adjustable. So we're going to be putting these guys on. So the green Mini's back, and because it sits so low, it rubs every time you hit a bump. Now currently the car's up on jack stand, so we've got all sorts of space, but normally it's just above the tire. We even adjusted it up and it didn't really help. Since then, the new owner hit a curb and lost a fender flare, so we're going to go ahead and replace these coilovers that are on the car with some adjustable ones. These are just lowering coilovers. So and then the other thing that happened was when he hit the curb, I don't know if you can see, this is your sway bar link, and right there was supposed to be the mount, but as you can see it is gone. So nowhere to connect the upper portion of the sway bar link. So we're going to go ahead, and the kit came with new adjustable sway bar links anyway, so that's perfect. This one was damaged anyway, the boot shot. We knew that when I did the inspection when I first got the car, and it was on the list to replace anyway. Actually, it looks like there's the missing piece. It's still on the bolt right there. So if somebody wanted to weld that back together, I guess you could. But yeah, when we got this car, we were told it had new coilovers all the way around. Regretfully, these were not new. These are definitely used. So you can tell because these are really beat up. But this is not a adjustable set. This body is fixed, and what somebody had done was loosen the collars, as you can see, and they spun this up, so basically making this spring as tight as possible, which made this car really bouncy going down the road. And it being such a short wheelbase, it would get kind of crazy. So if you're going to lower them just for looks, go buy some cheap ones. I think these are like $200 on Amazon or eBay. But if you want to actually adjust the car, don't do that. So the next thing we have to do, now that we got the wheel off, we have to pull this bolt out. Then we can push all of this down. I've already disconnected the hoses and wires, and just looking here to make sure there's no damage. So we've already disconnected that from this, so we just have this one bolt and then the three at the top, and then this arm can be pushed down and this unit can be pulled out of there. So that's what we're going to do today, is swap these out. And it looks like, because the way this is set up, I really don't know if I need to do an alignment. I will have to check, because I believe the alignment is done. Must be done at the top on this car. I don't see an adjuster down here, so we might still take it down and get it aligned. We'll have to see how it rides after we get it apart. But yeah, so I believe this is an 18, it looks like. So we'll pull that out, pull that bolt completely out. That way we can get this knuckle off of the bottom of the strut. Alright, to get the sway bar link off, you'll need an 18 to hold the flat part and a 15 to take the nut off. And that will get that out of the way. And then this bolt is a 18, and once we get that bolt out, we can pull this down and off the end of this, and then we can do the 3 bolts at the top, and then that's ready to come out. Alright, so I sprayed a little PB blaster to get some lubricant on the bottom of the strut. Then I just gave it a few light love taps with the hammer, and it slid down and fell right off. So now it's out of the way. I can do the upper, and then I can put it back together. I kind of like working on these little minis. A lot easier than doing struts on another car. Alright, so what we're going to do, I want this car to be about 1.5 inches taller than it was. So what I'm going to do is measure from the top of the plate to where the bolt goes through, and then add 1.5 inches to the black one. This way I can screw this down, and that'll give me a rough idea where I want to be. The car had about 3/4 of an inch from the top of the tire. It really wasn't enough. Unlike my car, where the tires are tucked in a little bit, when they go up, they are in the inside. On the Mini, they're rubbing on the fender. So we want to give ourselves just a little bit more room. And on these, all you have to do is screw this collar up a little bit, and then you can screw this bottom part of the cartridge down to give yourself the adjustment on these. Not this upper one. That does the preload on the spring. These are preset at the factory, so unless you know what you're doing or changing these, don't mess with them. Alright, so of course I forgot to get some video of this, but putting it back in, put the shock in at the top and just put the 3 bolts in kind of loose. I used the floor jack under the lower part of the A-arm to lift it while I slid the bottom part of the strut into it, and then put it all back together. So I made these 1.5 inches longer than the ones that were on here. The wheel is just back on, so when I do the other side I can set it on the ground and see if I have any other adjustments to make. I'll get a little bit better video of this other side, and hopefully that'll make it a little easier. Alright, I'll probably put this video in before the driver's side just so that it makes more sense. But so pull the wheel off. You're going to disconnect your lines, if you can slide them out of there. That's one. This one's in here a little stuck. Alright, just took 2 hands. Alright, so that's out of there. Now we're going to pull this 18 out, and what I'm going to do is put my floor jack underneath the bottom bolt down there. That way this caliper doesn't just drop, and then I can get this out. Now on the other one, probably have to take some of the paint off on the bottom, or powder coating, whatever that is, because it just doesn't want to slip into this collar very easily. And by easily I mean pretty much not at all. So I sanded down the other one when I put it in, and that seemed to make it a lot easier. Didn't have to take a lot of the powder coating off, just enough. I also sanded around the inside and put some lubricant in there so that it slid in better. But let's go ahead and see how this one comes apart. Alright, so I just pulled the bolt out of there, and this one's already way looser than the other one, because without the floor jack underneath there, it was wanting to slip down. See how easy that came down? The other one didn't do that. So hopefully when I put it back together, this will go back together a little better. So let's just get that all the way out of the way. Get that down there. Alright, that's as far as it's going to go. I'll bring that up. I'll need to tap. Oops, there it goes. Oh, perfect. Cool. Alright, so now we can get that one out of there, get the new one in. So I'll get the 3 bolts at the top, we'll get this down, and then we'll measure from the top of the hat to the center of this bolt, and then we'll add 1.5 inches to that, and that's what we will do, make our measurements for this one. And one thing about these, they were both shot anyway. The upper cushion is completely ripped out, so this one is completely almost a full circle. The other one was half. They're very dry and stiff, so these needed to be replaced anyway, or at least the hats did. Looks like there's no leaks on the bottom, but yeah, who knows. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to measure from basically the top edge of the plate down to the center, get a number, and then we'll measure that one out to the same, plus 1.5 inches. Alright, so just a quick, Just a quick look at that. It's about 17.5 inches from the top of the hat to the center of this hole. So we're going to do 19 inches on this one because we want to raise the car up. And that won't do it. Nice thing about this set is they are adjustable. You can spin this lower piece out and get, well, almost that much room out of it. So right now this one is way shorter. It's probably about an inch or so short, so we're going to actually bring this down. But alright, let me spin that out and then we'll get it set. Alright, so I just test fitted the end of this into the collar and it does not fit. Just like the other side, it is just a little bit too tight. So while I'm sanding the powder coat off, I went ahead and put a chisel inside the space here, just tapped it in there so that it opened this gap up just enough, and I'm going to let it sit there and rest for a few minutes, and then when I get ready to put it in, it hopefully will slide right in. I will take some sandpaper to the inside of this as well, that way any dirt or rust that might be holding it up, and then we'll put a little bit of PB Blaster in there to get it to slide. And I will do this with some sandpaper and put some PB Blaster on that as well. Alright, so I have the 3 bolts in at the top. This piece here goes towards the back. So we have that. And next we're going to stand the brake and everything up using the jack so that we can manipulate this into the hole, hopefully correctly, without any problems. We will need to get this on the right side of that. And we'll see. Alright. Alright, so if you get to like where I'm at, so it's in, but it's not sliding. I found that if you just tap along the edge here, the vibration will slide this down. So I'm going to put a little bit more PB Blaster on here and go ahead and just keep tapping this until the strut fully seats. Alright, so a little bit more PB Blaster, about 2 seconds. Put a little bit more pressure on the jack so it actually pushed the arm, actually moved the strut up. And once I did that, 2 taps on one side, 2 taps on the other, and it literally popped right in. So shouldn't have to fight it too much to get it in. Now we'll put our bolt in, keep everything locked down, then we'll adjust this down so that it's the right measurement. Okay, so collar is tight, the sway bar link is tight, the bolt that holds the bottom of the strut in is tight, so it's sitting flush. It will only sit flush and the bolt go through because it has a little keeper on the back side of this, so if it's not lined up it's not going to work. So we added 1.5 inches, so we're going to put the front wheels back on, well this front wheel back on, the other one's already on, and we'll set it on the ground and see how our clearance is. Hopefully we picked up at least 1 inch, 1.5 inches. That's what our goal was. If not, we'll pull the wheels back off, jack it back up, and do some more adjusting. Alright, so with it on the ground, or was on the ground a second ago, I had 4 inches from the top of the tire to the bottom edge of the fender on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and take about 1.5 inches back out and bring that down to somewhere around 2.5 inches is what I want to end up at. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to pull the wheel back off, readjust the spring back a little bit, set it back down, because that's overkill. Alright, so I took 1.5 inches out of the spring, and I ended up with roughly 2.5 inches, almost, just a little bit over. And I think that kind of this wheel's canted. The other side's 2.5 inches exactly, so I think once we do a little driving and get this wheel settled back in, 2.5 inches is what we're going to end up with. And then once we get this fender piece back on here, it should look closer. It just looks huge with the way this is off. So now we're moving to the back, and we're going to go ahead and already got it on jack stands, get the wheels off, we can get the new springs, or get the old springs out and get the new springs on. Alright. Alright, so I popped the rear off, just to give myself a little clearance. You could probably do this with the tire on if you can fish your hand up or a socket, because the bolt is right here and right here. So I don't know if you can get up there and get to that. I just decided to do it this way. It was easier. So we got to get this bottom bolt off, which looks like an 18 maybe. We'll see. And then we'll get the two upper ones off. Okay, so I got the old rear strut spring out. It was pretty easy. It's just 3 bolts. 2 14s here at the top and a 22 that's at the bottom. It's just, that's it. Then when you go to put these in, they only go in one way. The way the little hat is designed, if you don't put it in right, it won't clear everything and the holes don't line up. So fairly straightforward. It's a real simple one. Like I said, the only 3 bolts. It literally took 10 minutes. I was halfway through when I realized I hadn't picked up the camera. So that's pretty much it. I went ahead and measured the other strut from the top of the hat down to the center of the bolt hole and added an inch. So this is sitting at 16 inches from top to bottom, and that will give me an idea of where I need to go, so up or down. And then we just got to feed these lines here into this bracket. Let's see if we can get these in here like they're supposed to be. I don't know if we can one-handed, but alright. So last thing I have to do is finish tightening down these 2 uppers, put the wheel back on, and then do the other side, set it on the ground, and then I can take the measurements. I'd like to be about half an inch or so higher in the rear, just because that's the way I'd like to set the cars up. But yeah, so we're shooting between 2.5 and 3.5 inches in the rear. Alright, and the wheel's back on, and we'll go over to the driver's side and do its new strut. Alright, just like that, it's done. I still need to take a measurement, find out where we're at. But yeah, so all 4 corners are done. Now we just got to make sure they're level. So the wheels are torqued on. I'll take it for a test drive, settle the suspension, do a couple more measurements, and any fine adjustments from that point.